Okay, here we are in part 4. So I think the best place for me to start is with this warning. Okay, this is the last part in a video series where I have shared just a few of the challenges that Robert and I faced while we were growing up. I have put all this together for Jeanette and my grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and hopefully our great-great-great-grandchildren's benefit, if these videos can just survive that long. Hopefully they will have an opportunity to actually view some of these videos. I also believe our future generations will not be too keen on the idea of watching some video depicting life in those good old days as one happily ever after in some parallel universe with a healthy dose of Chanel or heavily saturated with a powder puff full of liqueur French powder. So relax, Mr. and Miss Future. Sit back and get a healthy dose of what of what real life is capable of delivering, even back in those good old days. This is a real, true life experience of two twin brothers reaching the heights of success from very humble beginnings. On a Georgia dirt farm with outhouses as toilets and no in-house tap water. To the big city lights where keeping your lunch money meant getting street smart in a real hurry or losing it all. Right there on the streets of the 3rd Ward in Houston, Texas. To the business arena, affording both of us all of the big boy toys, from luxury automobiles, Robert's Cadillac, and my 98 Oldsmobile, to boats, jet skis, motorcycles, and a beautiful home right up there in Orange Hills among the high society. Only to lose it all from alcohol and a large case of insane jealousy fueled with a vengeful hatred. I have been told that you live your life with the cards you are dealt. Well, this was the most rottenest hand Robert and I ever had to deal with. And the truth is, none of it should have ever happened. Okay, just moving right along now. Back on 26 October 2011, Julie sent me the following emails on my Facebook page. I have posted Julie's remarks and my reply. I think I will read them. 26 October 2011. Julie, I know that day, but you were only reserves. Same thing for y'all. I mean, does it count? My reply, Robert and I joined the Marine Corps 15 October 1955 for a 6-year commitment. 3 years active duty and 3 years inactive duty. The inactive reserve duty status meant any time within those 3 years the Marine Corps could have recalled us back to active duty. Robert and I were released from the Marine Corps active duty status in 1958. At the end of our 3-year inactive service duty, In 1961, we were awarded an honorable discharge. 31 October 2011 from Julie. Do Charlotte and Tiff know about their other siblings? My reply, it never at any time occurred to me that I should tell anyone about my life prior to 1960. However, you seem to be so eager to insert yourself into my personal life. Therefore, you have my permission to share your concerns and interests in my personal life with anyone you feel needs your version of my life prior to 1960 or any period after 1960. 16 November 2011 from Julie. Do you know I scored highest in the Mensa? Kudos to me. I am realizing it was Robert that made the company, and I get my smarts from him. What did your kids do? What did Gene do? Besides funny over the IRS and banks, it's all on paper. And if I die a mysterious death, bummer, it's still out there. But you will succumb to what you need to, and I will be there. My response, your comments above seem to be, to me, irrational and incoherent. Having to deal with severe alcohol addiction for well over 20 years, it appears to me a severe case of alcoholism or some sort of self-induced drug abuse is responsible for your unexplained attitude and behavior. As you are convinced your dad is responsible for Calabar's success, I leave you to believe whatever it takes to keep you satisfied and filled with blissful happiness. However, should you be interested in the cause for Calabar's failure, please request that information in writing. I will accept an email request as well. I hold Robert's second wife solely responsible for all the hatred and misunderstanding you and your sisters are filled with today. Should you be interested in why I feel this way, you will have to request that information in writing. I will accept your email request as well. 16 November 2011 from Julie. The paper trail never lasts. You are Gene, and I have lots of peeps on it. UFD, sorry. Hate to be so rash, but left me no choice. Once again, irrational and incoherent statements. Reasoning of the highest caliber cannot offer a response within the realm of common sense and reality. 23 November 2011 from Julie. Do you still want to talk, or are we done? Lots to say. Just so you know, we have a 12G and we all know how to use it. My response, yes, I want to talk. We will be done when you say we are done. Your 12G comment reflects a need for some serious counseling if presented here with a serious conviction and belief. 23 November 2011 from Julie. Yay, F.O., you killed my dad. I will never forgive you. You and your scabby wife. It's not just me. All of my sisters live to see justice. I am justice. You will reap Robert's way, 'cause you're his bro. Huh. F.O., he was nothing like you. Nope. He was just like me. We do our own thing. F.O. Response from me, any attempt by me to present any reasonable exchange with anyone capable of such irrational and incoherent statements would be futile. The tragedy here is you seem so comfortable with expressing such nonsense. Shortly after Julie refer to Jeanette as my scabby wife, I sent her an email asking Julie to answer 3 simple questions to herself because I already knew the answers. 1. In your entire life, Julie, did Jeanette ever look at you with any expression other than a smile? 2. Did Jeanette ever say anything to you that was anything other than a cheerful and in full support of you? 3. Did Jeanette ever do anything to you that was anything other than helpful or a benefit to you? Now, ask yourself what's wrong with this picture you have of Jeanette. Then, ask yourself why. And she never responded. 10 December 2011 from Julie. Hey Roy, I wanted to apologize for my previous rants. When it comes to my dad's side of the family, I have several bones to pick. I really do hope you and your family are happy and doing well. I mean it. My reply, I encourage you to pick as many bones as you feel need picking. I only insist on 3 simple requests be honored. 1, you must request any information for bone picking from me in writing. Email will be accepted by me. 2, you must do your best to stop presenting irrational and incoherent statements. And 3, use my personal email address for communicating between the 2 of us. In closing, I give you the benefit of doubt and accept your apology. On 8 June 2013, Julie sent me the following request via email. Uncle Roy, I would love to hear what you have to say about my mom and that relationship. Now, my response was, this letter is in response to your request. I will start with what I believe to be the beginnings of an unnecessary and tragic ending. I have shared here in part 4 the entire content of the letter that I mailed to Julie at her request on 14 June 2013. Julie never requested the information as to what caused the failure of color bar because she already knew. She was working there when it all came down around our shoulders. Julie is the only member in that immediate family that reached out to try and get some sort of an understanding as to what happened and gave me the opportunity to respond. And for that, Julie has earned a degree of respect from me. One more footnote. Back on 22 November 2011, I get a personal hand-printed note from Lori, that's Robert's oldest daughter, reminding me of my responsibilities as a result of my behavior in 1957. The only problem, she leaves me with no way to respond. This is not the behavior of any person that is sincere. I believe it was meant as a slap in Jeanette's face and certainly meant to be a slap in my face. I have no hard evidence that will support my beliefs as to the reasons Laurie took the time to send me that personal printed handnote. On 24 August 2014, I sent Julie the following email. Hi Julie, my apologies for barging in like this. I'm putting together a video, part 4, detailing the events that caused the failure of color bar. I had already finished it before I found a missing document. I'm now in the process of remaking part 4 that will include that document. It then occurred to me I have an opportunity to offer you, your 2 sisters, and your mother an opportunity to challenge my understanding of those events. If you are interested in having your understanding presented, I will mail you the transcript for your review and an opportunity to be heard. Note, these videos are for our grandchildren and is intended to share life's events with 2 twin boys that will become their grandparents in history's past without sugarcoating. Please let me know your decision as soon as possible. Take care. The other half of Robert. The following day, on 25 August 2014, I sent Julie another request. Hi Julie, in reference to my last email dated 24 August 2014, I will also be sharing in part 4 the circumstances surrounding Robert's death, from home care to his funeral service. My understanding may conflict with you, your 2 sisters, and your mother's understanding. Should this be the case, here is an opportunity to express it. If you and your family are interested, I will mail you the transcripts as well for your review. I hope all of you will take advantage of this opportunity. Please let me know as soon as possible. Thank you. Take care. The other half of Robert. Okay, in order to get some sort of a reasonable understanding how all this came about, I have to go all the way back to the years between 1963 and 1965. Somewhere between those years is the year I believe our downfall actually began. Robert and I already had started Twin Printing Company, and we both were working hard, long hours. Robert and his second wife already had their first child, Lloyd. Jeanette and I already had our first child, Lydia. Shortly after Lloyd was born, Robert's second wife hired a black babysitter. One fine day, Jeanette comes into the shop all in a panic. Our babysitter was sick, and she wanted to leave Lydia with me for today because she was already late for work. Well, Robert heard all this, and he came over and he says, "Oh man, that's crazy. Just take Lydia inside the house and let our babysitter take care of her for today." Now, who in the world would argue with that? Well, Robert's second wife comes home first and is immediately read the riot act times 5 by her black babysitter. The black babysitter tells Robert's second wife that she ain't no white woman's slave. She was hired to sit one baby, and she demands to be paid for keeping 2, and on and on and on. Later on, Jeanette comes to pick Lydia up. She walks into the house and suffers the same onslaught times 10 from Robert's second wife with a rage and fury. When the dust had settled, Jeanette tells Robert's second wife she was never to talk down to her like she was some black woman again. Jeanette takes Lydia and leaves. Later that night, when Jeanette tells me what had happened earlier, all I said was, well, it looks like all Robert's second wife paid for was a with a white chip on her shoulder. And next time, Jeanette, bring Lydia to me in the shop. She will be all right there. When Robert's second wife tells Robert what had happened, Robert says, why didn't you just keep your mouth shut? I sent Jeanette in to have our babysitter look after her for today. It was an emergency and nothing permanent. It is my firm belief when Robert's second wife failed to get the support she was expecting, she began to simmer with resentment and was never able to overcome it. Now, I have no hard evidence that I can point to that will support my belief. I can only say this. After that heated exchange between Robert's second wife and Jeanette, Robert's second wife never again ever invited Jeanette or myself to go anywhere or do anything together with them after that. Now this is from such an insignificant incident that would not rise to the level of a single grain of sand or a single drop of water in all the beaches and all the oceans on this planet. But Robert's second wife allowed this to fester within her, putting her into a mental coma she was never able to recover from. Okay, now you should have some sort of a reasonable understanding of why I believe this was the beginnings of a tragic and unnecessary downturn. Okay, now I will fast forward to 1967. Robert, his second wife, Jeanette, and I have all moved to California to start what will later become the Color Bar Corporation. One afternoon, Robert and I are sitting at my dining room table in La Mirada, California. We were trying to map out a plan to get this venture off the ground. Okay, we'll take a short, brief intermission for a 2023 update. Now, I don't think it's possible for me to impress upon you how major this move was to sell one business and go into another business in another state. This was really a major move. And today when I look back and ask myself how we did that, I really don't know. But we did, and now here we are, we're in California. We're making plans to form this new business, and Robert and I had already talked about the name, and because twin printing was so good to us, we had already decided that we would name it the Twin Color Corporation. And that was set in my mind while we were sitting at my dining room table there in La Mirada. Before we got started on naming the officers, Robert said, Roy, I got another name for our business. I said, oh man, come on, what's wrong with Twin Color? Yeah, Roy, think for a minute. And I said, well, okay, what is it? He says, Color Bar. I thought for a minute and I was thinking to myself, Color Bar, you gotta be kidding. I said, Robert, people think that we open in a bar that serves color people. Roy, you're not thinking. No, that ain't it at all. Think. What is the last thing print shops burn on their plates. And he said that I almost fell out of that chair. I said, Robert, Colorado Corporation has just been born, and that's how we got the name Colorado Corporation. It was Robert's idea. He had a brainstorm, and where it came from, I don't know, but it paid off in more ways than you can possibly imagine. And that's the rest of the story. Now, back to history's past in review. At that time, you needed 3 officers to form any corporation. I said, hey, Robert, I would like to be president. Well, that's okay. I'll be vice president. So now we need a secretary-treasurer. Our choices are Robert's second wife and Jeanette. At this point, Robert slams his hand down on the table as hard as he can, and he says, Roy, under no circumstances will my wife have any part of the front office, bookkeeping, checking accounts, or anything else with managing any part of our business. Well, that set me back. Now, Robert, what in the heck is the problem? Roy, do you remember when my wife left me cold, took the kids back home to her mama in Texas? Well, yeah, I do, Robert. Did I tell you that she also cleaned out our checking account as well? And if she will do that to me, she will have no problem doing that to you or our business anytime she feels the need to do so. Okay, Robert, not a problem. Jeanette is our secretary-treasurer. Okay, moving right along, at some point in the 80s, Colorado had made a successful claim in the business arena. We haven't brought on a second shift yet, so Robert, his wife, Jeanette, and me, we all have a business meeting at Colorado. And this business meeting took place in the back working area at the lunch table. We had an insurance agent from Northwestern Mutual, and Robert and I bought $400,000 annuity insurance policies on each other. I owned Robert's policy, and Robert owned my policy. Now listen carefully and pay attention, and keep what I'm about to say in the back of your mind. It's going to pop up later. Now, during this meeting, our insurance agent makes a casual remark. Well, now, boys, with all the extra profits from Color Bar, you can buy CDs. All laughed. And Robert and I adjourned the meeting. Okay, now just quickly moving along. I'm not quite sure the year this all took place. You know, funny thing about years, you don't really think about them when you live in them. It's only after you start remembering them do they take on an importance. But anyway, at some point in time, Robert and I are coming back to the shop from a sales meeting that we both had in Los Angeles with one of our clients. The phone rings, and it's a call from Robert's second wife. After a minute or so, all of a sudden, Robert explodes in an angry rage, and spit was coming out of his mouth. Man, I couldn't believe it. I ain't never seen him behave that way. This went on for at least 3 or 4 non-stop minutes. I could not believe what I was hearing. When he hangs up, I asked, what in the heck was that all about, Robert? He tells me his youngest daughter, Julie, was removed from the cheerleading squad and replaced with another girl only because her parents had more influence. Robert, you went through all that anger because of some high school cheerleading squabble? Well, when I said that, it set him off again for another minute or so. Only this time, when he finished, I moved the conversation back to the meeting we had just left, and I never thought about it again after that. A few years later, I began to notice a change in Robert. When one morning I saw him with a quarters in his hand. I looked up at the clock, and it was only 8:30 in the morning. I said, "Hey, Robert, what's that in your hand, man?" It's not even 9 o'clock yet." He just smiled and said, "Well, guess what, Roy? It's 5 o'clock somewhere." Well, I thought that was funny, and I laughed it off. A few months later, one of our printing sales reps asked me, "What the heck is wrong with your brother?" I'm thinking, well, what the heck are you talking about? Well, I gave Robert a Rolex watch, and he treated me and that watch like I was dirt. I told him, I said, "Hey, but look, Robert has just had a huge argument with his wife, and that will cause anyone to get all twisted out of shape." "Well, maybe so, but I don't like it." And he turned around and walked off. And another time, Robert was helping one of the girls in the prep department with a problem she was having. When he became so belligerent, it caused her to break down in tears and had to go home for the rest of the day. The next day, everything was as if it never happened. We had another sales rep, Niles Harper from Fuji Film, call me late one night at Color Bar in tears. I could not believe this guy was crying, and he asked me, "What the heck is wrong with your brother?" Well, we had a long conversation, and I tried to tell him that Robert was going through some very difficult times at home, and we went on and on about it, and I don't think Niles ever believed me or got over it. At first, I thought all of these things were the result of Robert's short fuse, but now I'm starting to worry. I began to have some conversations after hours in the front office with Robert concerning his use of beer. After several of these conversations, I pointed to the event taking place with the young girl, causing her to break down in tears. He flatly denied he ever did any such thing. Even after I told him, I said, "Robert, I saw you with my own eyes. You can go back and talk to anyone back there in the shop and they'll tell you the same thing." He still denied he ever did that. Well, okay, so then I bring up the Rolex watch thing, and he denied he would ever treat anyone that way. Okay, now I bring up Niles Harper, and still he denies he would ever treat Niles that way. Well, we go on to have several more after-hours conversations over several weeks. Then on the last meeting I had with Robert, talking about his use of beer, he tells me he is tired of listening to all my bullcrap. So stay out of his personal life. Those are his words. "Just stay out of my personal life, Roy." Okay, now I realize I done touched another fuse, so I say, "Hey, well, not to worry, Robert. I will never bring this subject up again. You have my word." Now, about a year or so later, Robert's second wife comes to me and asks if I would help her get Robert to see a counselor for alcohol abuse. Oh man, when I heard that, I stepped back and I looked at her and I said, "You are playing with fire. That decision has to come from Robert. And if I help you trick him into seeing an alcohol abuse counselor, he will see that as a stab in his back from me, and you will pay a very heavy price for deceiving him. Are you willing to gamble all that?" "Well, don't you want to help your brother?" Oh man, now how do you answer that one? Well, of course I want to help Robert. but not behind his back, and certainly not by tricking him. Well, she goes on to explain how she had already tried and tried and tried, but he just won't go. So we have a long conversation, and in the end, I agree to help her get Robert to see a alcohol abuse counselor through deception. Now, I don't know what Robert's second wife used as an excuse, but I was along for support. So, now we arrive and we go in to meet Dr. X. We all shake hands and we sit down, but I wait until Robert sits down and he's in the middle chair. Then I move my chair slightly to the back and slightly at an angle so that I can see Robert's expression on his face when he learns the truth as to why he is there. Now I'm sitting on his right. His second wife sits on his left. Robert is sitting in his chair in a relaxed and a smile on his face, a pleasant smile, and he seems to be real cheerful. When he learns why he is there, his posture becomes firm, and that bright, cheerful smile moves immediately to a simple, firm look without that smile part. Not angry and not a mad look. It's just a plain, firm look. Later, I hear Robert tell the doctor, "Oh, I can stop drinking beer any time I want to." Well, that led the Dr. X into another direction. Now, after about 30 minutes or so, 45 minutes, we all get up to leave. Robert steps over, he shakes Dr. X's hands and says, "Thank you, sir. If I ever need your counseling, I have your business card." Robert went home with his second wife, and I went back to work. The next afternoon at work, Robert wants to have a talk. We go in the office, and I'm telling you, I felt the heat from a tanked flamethrower. This went on for about a good half hour, 45 minutes, and I never opened my mouth. When he finally cooled off, I tried to explain, "Look, Robert, I was only trying to help you." Well, this led to another 5 minutes of heat. When he cooled off again, I said, "Robert, I apologize for what I did. I give you my word I will never pull another stunt like that again." Well, the next day it was as though it never happened. Okay, then one day Robert comes to me and says, "Hey, Roy, we need to have a talk after work." "Okay, Robert, well, what's up?" I'll go over that later." Okay. So that afternoon, Robert, his second wife, Jeanette, and me, we meet in the front office. I sit behind the desk. Jeanette sits to my right, real close. And Robert's second wife, she sits to my far right, and Robert sits across the desk in front of me. "Okay, what's up, Robert?" He leans back in his chair with his chorus, and he asks, "Where is all that silver money from our film?" Well, when he asks that question, Jeanette's mouth drops open. She gets up, opens the safe right behind Robert, takes out a large envelope, hands it to him, and starts to cry a little bit. Then she says, "I told you and Roy both I did not want to be responsible for that, but no, you insisted, saying you didn't have the time to fool with it, and Roy didn't want to fool with it. So here it is. You can count it, Robert. It's all there, and with the dated receipts as well. I was saving it for a party when you and Roy launched that monster houseboat, y'all were building back there in the back parking lot. Now, you can keep up with it. I don't want anything else to do with it anymore." Then Robert says, "Now calm down, Jeanette, just calm down. I was only asking." the party idea that you come up with sounds real good to me, so just keep going with it, and when we launch the boat, we'll use it for a launching a boat party. Okay, anything else? Why is Color paying for Jeanette's mother's gas card? Oh man, now Jeanette jumps up again, telling Robert through some tears now, look, Color isn't paying a dime for my mother's gas card, Robert. I pay for that out of my own pocket, Robert. Little note here, Color did pay our mother's gas card, and at the end of the year, if Mom's had spent $1,000, each of us, me and Robert, would get a 1099, and we would claim we had earned $500 additional for that year. That's how that works. Robert then asked, well, why is Color paying for our 3 kids' Northwestern insurance policy? Oh man, when he asked that, I knew something was not right. I just stared at him for a minute. I couldn't really believe what I heard. Then Jeanette leaned over and said, Robert, Color does not pay a damn for those policies. And then I said, well, hold it, Jeanette. Hold it just a minute. So now I stand up, I lean on the desk, and I'm staring straight at Robert. And I'm thinking to myself, Robert, are you talking to me from you, or are you talking to me to on my right? And he said, well, and I said, okay, Robert, do you remember when you came to me and you said that we needed $2,000 a month raise? Oh, yeah. I said, well, do you remember what you did with your $2,000 a month? You went out and you bought a $500,000 home up in Orange Hills, California. Well, it was only $450,000. Well, okay, $450,000. Well, do you know what Jeanette and I did with our $2,000 a month raise? Jeanette and I, we kept that puny little $28,000 home we bought shortly after we got out here in La Mirada. And Jeanette and I went out and we bought a policy, annuity policies from Northwestern Mutual for Lydia, Charlotte, and Tiffany. And we pay for those policies out of our own pocket, Robert. Now, is there anything else on your mind, Robert? Well, yeah, there is. Where are the CDs? And when he asked me that question, I'm thinking, CDs? Oh, man, I don't know nothing about no CDs. I'm thinking to myself, and then I look at him and say, Robert, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't own any CD players. Oh, man, when I said that, Robert's second wife come flying out of that seat and started yelling with an angry voice, we're not talking about no stupid CD players. We're talking about all them CDs you were going to buy with all of Colorbar's profits. Oh, man, you could have hit me in the head with a 4x4 and I would have felt no different. So now I turn and I'm facing her and I can feel the blood in my neck start to boil. I said, listen, woman, listen to me, and you had better listen good, because I'm only going to say this once. Robert has a key to every lock in this building. Robert knows the combination to every safe in this building. Robert knows every single account we have here at Colorbar. Robert knows how much money each account pays us every month. Robert already knows how much Colorbar spends each month on labor and what it spends on our overhead. Robert also knows how to add and subtract. Robert knows where Jeanette keeps Colorbar's books. Robert knows he can have an audit of those books anytime he chooses. Robert also knows where Jeanette keeps Colorbar textbook. Robert also knows he can come in here anytime he chooses, day or night, take any check he wants, write it for any amount he chooses, and Robert knows he can cash it at the bank without any problem. Robert also was sharp enough to know when Calabar could afford another $4,000 a month charged to labor. Now you want me to believe that he's all of a sudden stupid and can't add and subtract? But then I guess you would have no way of knowing about all of that now, would you? Okay, and with that, Robert stands up, puts his hands up in the air, up overhead, stretches, leans back, and he says, I make a motion this meeting be adjourned. Well, I second that. We all go home. I guess Robert went home with his second wife. I went home with Jeanette, sobbing all the way. This was not a good time meeting. Okay, now comes the beginning of our downfall. One night around 10 o'clock, one of our titles came in and it was 2 days late. And we only have 7 days to deliver a title back to the customer. This second shift is working, and Robert and me are all still there too. This happens to be one of our smallest titles. It only brings in about $3,000 a month. I meet the editor at the back door to take the title from her when Robert comes down the hall, and all of a sudden, I'm telling you, all hell breaks out. Robert goes into a uncontrollable, wild, frantic rage, and he's calling her every filthy name in the book and then some I never heard of. So I take the title from her after she's already turned several shades whiter, and I'm walking her to the back door, and Robert is walking behind her screaming and yelling. Oh man, I'm telling you, it was not good. And I step outside with her, and she turns and looks at me and says, I thought he was going to physically attack me. And I'm trying to explain to her. I said, well, he's upset right now. You're 2 days late, and on and on and on. And she started to leave. She turned around and said, you ain't heard the last of this, my friend. So I turn around and I start walking to the back to get the title into production. And Robert's already back there. And when I get back there, you could have heard a pin drop. And normally there's a little background noise that goes on, but I'm telling you, man, it was so quiet I could hear myself breathe. So after a while, I get with Robert and I ask him, Robert, what in the world was that all about, man? Damn, do you know what you just did? And he's still angry. Well, she was brought on to bring that title on schedule, and now look at she's 2 days late, and we're supposed to make up the dip, on and on and on. So I said, well, Robert, I don't know, man. I said, we're probably going to lose this title. And he said, well, that's good, man. We don't need that freaking title. So anyway, he leaves and goes home, and I leave after I get that title into production mode. Okay, so now, on the way home that night, my mind is just running wide open, full throttle, trying to go through all the different scenarios that's going to develop over this. Anyway, the next afternoon, I get a letter, a hand-delivered by a messenger. The letter was from the editor Robert had verbally attacked the last night. Now, to me, it went into surprising detail right down to the point where she claimed I did nothing to intervene. So now I'm hoping, well, we only lose this one account. I showed the letter to Robert. When he finishes reading it, he said, man, there ain't no way I said any of these things to that woman. I said, Robert, I saw it with my own eyes. Everyone in this plant heard you. And he still denied it ever happened. Okay, now, later that same afternoon, Randy Tyler, and he's the rep for American Web that's just printing that title. He meets with me, he shows me the letter that he had just received, and asks me, hey, Roy, is this true? Man, I had to tell him, yeah, it's true, Randy. So we have a long conversation. I leave hoping we will only lose this one stinking title. The following day, Randy Tyler, and the CEO from American Web They call and ask Robert and me to meet them for lunch. So Robert and I, we make the luncheon. The CEO asks Robert if this is a true event. Robert denies it ever took place. Nothing more is discussed concerning the issue, and we all leave that luncheon in a quiet spirit. Later on that month, when Orange Coast is due in, Randy tells me he has no choice but to pull Orange Coast. Now, I know Color Bar is in serious trouble. That was one of our biggest titles, and it brought in around 10 to 12,000 a month. Okay, now sometime later, Randy, he meets with me, and the first question he asked me is, say, Roy, what percent of business does American Web represent to you? I looked at him and I said, well, you're about 20-25%, Randy. Why you ask? And that conversation goes no further. Now, I realize we are going to lose all of American Web titles that we're working. The following month, Randy Tyler tells me that American Web has no choice but to pull all of their titles. Now, Randy's telling me this, knowing full well that we still have over half of his titles in the back plant being worked on. Now, I know we're in real trouble. And I also know that our industry is a very tight, small group. There are only about 3 vendors in the Southern California region that can produce or even come close to producing the products that we do. At this time, Color Bar Corporation is the largest pre-press manufacturer in Southern California. All of our competitors want to know how Color Bar does it. Several of them have called on more than one occasion requesting a walkthrough, and I had always given respectful decline. Later that day, when Robert learns of this, he calls a meeting that afternoon for all of the day shift and the night shift personnel. The only thing that I can remember from that meeting is Robert saying, "This is war." And Bonnie, our sister, saying, "Yeah, Robert, but are we going to win it?" And I don't remember nothing before that or after that. Okay, now comes the divorce. Robert and his second wife go through what I would call an unpleasant one. Anyway, during this divorce, Robert's second wife, out of the blue, comes to me at work and tells me that she's not interested in anything at Color Bar. All I did was tell her, say, look, I cannot get in the middle of this. And then shortly after that, Robert's second wife comes to me and says she is moving back to Texas. So she quits, and back to Texas she goes. When Robert was clearing up his divorce proceedings and everything, he gave me his 70s jukebox, a lot of his Marine Corps documents, including his honorable discharge, his Marine Corps graduation book, his Marine Corps pocket Bible, it's a little small Bible that fits in your shirt pocket, his birth certificate, and his Air Force Airman of the Year award. I still have all of that stuff to this day. And I told Robert, I said, man, when you get ready for this stuff back, let me know, it's yours. Then, one fine day, we were audited by the state tax board. And this auditor was a nice-looking blonde, and her name was Bo. The next thing you know, Robert and Bo are dating. Then, the next thing you know, Robert and Bo are married. Okay, now just move right along. Then there comes a time when our CPA passes away. Then Robert tells me that Bo, his wife, his third wife, knows a good CPA. So we bring Bo's CPA on to keep our books. Then the next thing you know, Bo sues Robert for an annulment. At no time through all of this experience did me and Robert ever move apart. We were still close. Now, I understand how some people will have a great difficulty accepting that. But here's the upside. I'm not asking anyone to accept it. Okay, later on, at some point in time, Robert cashes in his insurance policy that he holds against me. He has a check for $55,000. He goes into Jeanette's office, hands her the check, and tells Jeanette, "Here, take this. You are going to need this to help keep Color Bar going. I can no longer work anymore. I'm going back to Texas." Now, want to talk about a cold, hard shock? I asked Robert, "Why in the heck are you cashing in your insurance policy, Robert?" His words, "Because I don't want that to get a single dime from me." Okay, so now Robert moves back to Texas. He gives Jeanette some information. I don't know what it was, but every so often she would mail him a check. And Julie, his youngest daughter, is still working with us. Robert calls me from time to time, and we share all the events that's going on. He tells me about all the stuff that's happening there in Texas, and I keep him informed on the business at Color Bar, and none of it was good. One of the things he tells me that really bugged him a lot was the fact his best friend, Kenneth Quinn, could not stand Rush Limbaugh. Go figure. Rush was one of our favorite commentators. There were other events that bothered him a great deal more, but I don't care to share that here now. Okay, now the following year we lose our biggest account, Macro. I have 4 people still working. Ron, Rulo, and Julie are 2 of the 4. Later, Julie will quit on a Friday without notice and moves back to Texas. Now I start closing Color Bar down. I go to Western Outdoors. They owe us right around $30,000. After explaining what's going on, they offer me $17,000 with a take it or leave it offer. I take it. I make arrangements with several other smaller accounts ending with similar discounts. When I approach an executive golfer, he is stunned and offers to take me to lunch. So he takes me to the Newport Country Club. We're having a pleasant conversation, and he wants to know if there is anything he can do to help me. I said, well, Ed, you can be a really big help if you could just pay your account. He picks up the phone, calls his wife, tells her to have a check in the full amount for Roy ready when we get back to his office. That check was for $5,000. Of all the small titles we had, the Executive Golfer and Ed Tasman were the only ones to pay in full immediately, while all the others had to chisel 20 to 30% off. Now, at this time, I have 1 title left in the plant belonging to Macro. When I deliver that title, Color Bar will be in business no more. Macro owes us around $40,000 to $45,000. Okay, a little small footnote here. When Robert and I first went down to try to get the account at Macro, when we first got it, it was small, but it grew into our largest account. And I don't know, maybe 2, maybe 3 years after we had gotten Macro in the shop, we was doing real good with it. One of his partners died, and they changed the name to Fancy Publications. So most of the employees that worked with us will only recognize Macro if you refer to it as Fancy Publications. But the entire time that I worked with Fancy down there, I always referred to them as Macro. Okay, now I'm in the process of trying to finish the only title I have left in the plant. And I'm sitting at home one night, and Robert called. Hey Roy, I'm coming back to California. Want to talk about a cold shock again? Robert, I thought you were happy there. What the heck is wrong? I know you're upset with Julie's behavior and her ex-husband, but Robert, that's their life. You can't let that kind of stuff get in your way. Well, he goes on to explain all the other reasons. Then I asked him, well, where in the heck are you planning on staying? I can stay in that back room we leased out to that other company. Robert, I cannot keep colorboard doors open any longer, maybe a month, 2 at the most, and that's it. But, man, you can stay with us, so come on out. Man, when I said that, Robert, he turned that down straight out of hand. Then I said, well, how about your motorcycle friend that lives there in San Diego? Because I just got through talking to him, and his wife turned that idea down flat. So I said, look, Robert, come on back. We've been through tougher times, and we can get through this. Come on, man, let's get it done. Let's get it over with. He says, well, I'll think about it, Roy, and I'll call you back later. And we hung up. Okay, now it's about a month, maybe 2 months later. Jeanette and I, we get a card in the mail with Robert and his 4th wife picture on it, announcing their marriage. He has remarried his 2nd wife. Want to talk about cold shock? Now I'm looking at this picture, and I tell Jeanette, I mean, something is not right with Robert. Look, he's lost too much weight. Well, or maybe he's on a diet, Roy. So I thought, well, I don't know, man. This don't look like that to me. Something is not right here. Well, it was about 2, maybe 3 months later. I'm sitting at home trying to figure out what to do next, and the phone rings. It's Robert. He tells me he has about 6 months to live. Robert, that's not funny, man. Stop that crap. Roy, it's not crap. It's the truth, man. Well, you don't sound all that concerned. What's up with that? Roy, we have already cried. All the crying we can possibly do. I am cried out. Now I have to face reality. Man, Robert, how did this happen? His reply was real simple. Well, Roy, I tell you, it's just the luck of the draw. Now, you want to talk about cold shock again? Okay, so now, with Robert's condition on my mind, I have to go back down and finish cleaning out the car bar. Now, we have a lot of equipment there, and we had 2 24-inch graphic arts cameras that we had paid $17,000 each for. Now, that's over $34,000, so I called a couple places, and the best offer I had was $100 flat for both of them. So I tell the guy, I said, well, thank you very much. Let me give you a call when they're ready for you to come pick up. Well, okay, thank you very much, and we hang up. So I go and I take my older brother's cutting torch that he had gave me, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago, and I still got it today in the garage out there. And I cut both of those cameras down into 6 pieces. So I got 12 pieces of 2 24-inch graphic cameras ran out in the back parking lot. So I gave the guy a call and I said, hey, those cameras are ready for you to pick up. Oh, they're easy to get to. I said, oh yeah, they're out in the back parking lot right now. And I said, I made it real easy for you to pick them up. You don't need any help. I cut them up into 12, both 6 pieces each, and I got 12 pieces of them laying out. What? You cut them things up? I said, hell yeah, man. $100 for it. I made your job easy. He said, are you kidding me? I said, hell no, I'm not kidding, and this ain't funny. Now, if you want them, bring $100 and you can have them. He hung that phone up with a slam. But I really enjoyed that conversation. And I got 15 pounds for them 2 cameras. Okay, here for another little bit there. Right there, after I finished cutting those cameras up, I had a 24-inch lens. Now, this lens was $2,300 or something like that. It was $2,000 minimum. And I was ready to hit it with a sledgehammer, and then I thought, wait a minute, Jeanette's in the front office. So I bring Jeanette back to the bag, and I said, hey, Jeanette, you want to get rid of some frustrations? Well, yeah, how? I said, here, take this sledgehammer, and I pointed to the center of that lens laying on the floor, and I said, just hit it right there in the center. Well, she swung that thing 3 times and kept hitting the cement floor, and I said, hey, look, calm down, settle down, take your time, and just aim for right there, and I pointed at the center of that lens, and on that 4th swing, she hit that lens right in the center. And that thing splintered out into about a dozen or so pieces. I said, hey, you feel any better? Well, yeah, I feel a little better now. Okay, now why did I take the sledgehammer to that lens? Because I couldn't get a nickel for it. I was told it was outdated and there was no further use for that type of lens. And the best I could do was donate it to a school or a museum. And I was not about to do that. So I donated it to Jeanette and me for some pressure relief, and that we did get. We had also leased $150,000 worth of Apple desktop publishing computers. The leasing company got 10 cents on the dollar, and they were happy to give. So now I'm through. I have already cleaned out this 5,000 square foot building that Robert and I had bought just 2 years earlier. Color Bar Corporation is no longer doing business. Okay, now in the end, I am able to collect a total of $63,000 cash. And that is all I was able to get for 29 years of long hours, hard work, a lot of sweat and work. That comes to a grand total of $2,100 a year for all that effort. Would I change anything? Not a chance. Why? Because Color Bar gave us some of our best years we could ever hope for. Okay, at the height of Color Bar's success, we were grossing $3 million a year. My goal was to go for $4 million a year. Now,
I know what you're thinking. Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. You've got to ask yourself one question.
What did you do with all those millions? Well, I think it'd be pointless to try to explain, but here's an attempt. We spent $1 million a year just on Fuji film products alone. And after Robert realized that Color Bar could afford another $4,000 a month charged against labor, it was all we could do to break even every year after that. Now, if you need more information than that, then just write me a letter and I will do my best to answer any questions you have regarding what happened to all those millions. Okay, now Jeanette and I have to decide what we're going to do. After a long conversation together, we decided to move back to Natchitoches, Louisiana. That's her hometown. That's where she was born. And the reason is the low cost of living, but also her mom and all of her relatives live there. Then Jeanette has a conversation with her younger sister, Joyce. And Joyce convinces Jeanette to move there on her property. She has 5 acres in Santa Fe, Texas. So, without any thought or much at all, we moved to Santa Fe, Texas. And with that $63,000, I buy 3 acres from her and build a small house. Nice house, but small. Okay, now is a good time to pause and consider the warning that I posted at the beginning. You should also be aware that I will make no apologies for the language that I will be using. Okay, so now I'm out there working on this house in Santa Fe, Texas, and I get a call from Mickey. Mickey is my nephew, our older sister's son, and he gives me Robert's address where he's living. So I drive over then, and when the wife sees me, she invites me in and immediately tells me that I am welcome to visit Robert as long as I like and as often as I like. But Jeanette is not allowed under any circumstances inside her home. Man, I just stared at her and I'm thinking, said, okay, I understand this is your home and I will respect your home. And shortly later she goes back and she gets Robert. Robert comes out of his room using his cane. He sits down on the couch and his first words to me was, "Where is Jeanette?" I look over at that and I tell Robert she could not make the trip now. So we have a conversation when he has to go back to bed. I leave, but now I have a strong hatred for that. Days later, Mickey calls again telling me all of Robert's daughters, Kenneth and Barbara, him and his mom have been invited to visit with Robert later that night. Then he tells me, "Roy, don't tell anyone how you found out." "Why, Mickey?" "Because I don't want Robert's fourth wife to get mad at me." And I said, "Look, Mickey, not to worry, but right now, without your help, I wouldn't know jack crap. So I appreciate your concerns more than I could ever thank you enough for." So later that evening, Jeanette and I, we go over and I park out front. And I get out, having to leave Jeanette in the truck, crying her eyes out. If anyone would like to hit the pause button now and try to comprehend what I just said, I can tell you the pause button is not going to give you enough time to understand what I have just said. Now, on the way in, I am so furious, I can't hardly see straight. So when I go in the house, everyone there is having a good time. Robert seems to be enjoying everything. He's in good spirits. He looks real good, and he's enjoying it. So I'm there about, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe, when Kenneth Quinn, he comes over and he says, "Hey, Roy, where's Jeanette?" And I tell Kenneth, Jeanette is not allowed inside Robert's fourth wife's home on orders from his fourth wife. He says, "That's bullshit." So he goes outside and he brings Jeanette in the house. And when he does that, I start noticing that, knowing what I know, I'm looking at Robert to see her reaction. I'm here to tell you her reaction was as though Jeanette was never on this planet. Her manners, her cordial conversation, her laughing, she was joking around. And when Jeanette came in, nothing changed. She just went on with her conversation like Jeanette was not in the room. She never, ever, at any time, recognized Jeanette. So Jeanette and I, we have a conversation with Robert, and after about 30 minutes or so, Jeanette and I, we say our goodbyes. And Robert asked me, "When will you and Jeanette be back?" And I said, "Robert, I'll be back tomorrow for sure." "Okay, we'll see you guys then." Okay, the next day I go back, and Robert, he comes out of his bedroom with his cane. He sits down on the couch with his cane between his legs, and he has both of his hands on top of his cane. He has a pleasant smile. He looks, he looks okay. He looks good. And then he looks up and he says, "Where's Jeanette? I thought she was coming." I look over at that and I tell Robert while I'm looking at that Jeanette couldn't make the trip today. Then I look down at Robert. Robert looks at me for, I don't know, a couple seconds. Then he drops his face down on top of his hands and he didn't say a word. After a few minutes or so, he gets up and says, "I got to go back to bed." He didn't say another word to me. Now, you ain't met the hate that I got for that now. So I leave without saying a word. The next day I go back, the preacher is there. Barbara Quinn is there sitting at a small table off to one side of the room, the left side of the room. I sit down on Barbara's left, and the preacher, he doesn't understand why Robert doesn't want to see me. So he asked me some questions, and then at some point I answered, "Man, I am so angry I could just spit nails." Then the preacher jumps back and he looks and he says, "Well, are you mad or angry with your brother?" Oh man, I looked at him and I said, "There ain't no way, sir, I could ever be angry with Robert. I am mad and I am angry at the circumstances around all of this. Well, he never pressed my reply, and I never expanded on it. Okay, now eventually the preacher, he leaves, and Barbara is sitting at this small table. I'm sitting on Barbara's left, and is sitting on Barbara's right. When Barbara asked me what happened at Color Bar, Robert never got a single penny. Okay, here is a 2023 update. When I heard Barbara say those words to me, what happened at Color Bar, Robert never got a single penny. I was stunned. Now, sometime a little later, after Robert's funeral, and after I finished building that home there in Santa Fe, Texas, I began to give some thought to what Barbara had said. I cannot recall the year. I sat down one afternoon and I wrote Barbara Quinn a 16-page response to her comment. I won't read or go through all of the 16 pages. I'm only going to share here 4 of those pages. So here I go. I will start with, I will call the first page, Robert never got a single penny. Robert came and asked me if Color Bar would be willing to loan Carol and Scott $20,000 for a down payment on their new home. I said, heck yeah. Why not, Robert? This is what all this hard work is for. Robert said they would pay it back when they could. This is not a problem for me, Robert. Jeanette wrote out a check for $20,000 and I signed it. That year, Robert was credited with having earned an extra $10,000 as income and paid taxes on it. That year, Roy was credited with having earned an extra $10,000 as income and paid taxes on it. I never got a check for $20,000 from Carol. Do you see anything unusual or perhaps remarkable here, Barbara? And by the way, when Carol and Scott divorced and sold their home, they refused to pay Robert, claiming it was a gift, and of course it was. However, principles come to mind. Okay, here's page 2. Robert never got a single penny. Together, Robert and Roy wanted to retire in Henderson, Nevada, because it was near Lake Mead. Together, Robert and Roy bought 3 lots on a beautiful hillside overlooking Las Vegas. 1 lot for Robert, 1 lot for Roy, and guess what, Barbara? Together, Robert and Roy bought 1 lot for Kenneth and Barbara. Color Bar paid for all 3 lots. Together, Robert and Roy sold that property at a decent gain. The real estate agent made out 2 checks, one for Robert and his second wife, and one to Roy and Jeanette. Do you see anything unusual or perhaps remarkable here, Barbara? Okay, here is page 3. Robert never got a single penny. One day, Robert said it was time for each of us to get a decent raise. At the time, we both were making about $4,000 a month. Together, Robert and Roy decided $2,000 a month raise was possible. With his raise, he bought a $400,000 home up on some hillside. However, he needed an additional $60,000 for the down payment. So Jeanette wrote a check for $60,000 and I signed it. Colabar did not have an extra $60,000 for me. All Colabar could come up with was a $40,000. I thought that was great. Robert got a new $400,000 home, and I got $40,000 that I did not need. To me, it was a win-win for both of us. Do you see anything unusual or perhaps remarkable here, Barbara? Okay, now here's page 4. Robert's income was $6,000 a month, plus the income from his wife. Seems like a lot of pennies to me, Barbara. Roy's income was $6,000 a month, plus the income from Jeanette. Jeanette and Robert's second wife both were paid the same amount. Do you see anything unusual or perhaps remarkable here, Barbara? Robert never got a single penny. After Robert and his second wife divorced, he came in the shop and told Jeanette and me he was going to cash in his annuity policy. It was for $400,000 at maturity. I tried to talk him out of doing that, but when Robert makes up his mind about anything, as you know, there is no changing it. However, together Robert and Roy had already borrowed $20,000 against each of those policies. We used the $40,000 to build the houseboat. What did Robert do with the money? He received $55,000 and gave every cent to Colabar. When I asked him why he was doing that, he said, because I do not want his second wife to get one thin dime of it, Roy. Now that I can no longer work here, you are going to need every dollar to keep Colabar going. Later, he came back and withdrew $5,000. Now, I made a copy of all those 16 pages and addressed one to Barbara in Pearland, Texas, and the copy I sent it to care of Barbara in Pearland, Texas, but I addressed to Robert's second wife's name on it. When Barbara received it, I got the one addressed to Robert's second wife was returned to me marked the wrong address. Now, I don't know why she didn't forward that to the person that she had so much confidence in. She took her word for every second without even considering a short counsel with me to confirm it one way or the other. What a tragedy that was so unnecessary and should never have ever happened. It just goes to illustrate that some people, DNA has a diabolical cell in it. It is revealed at times that are totally and completely unnecessary. And now you have the rest of that story. Now, taking you back to history's past in review. Then she asked, why wasn't I helping with Robert's medical bill? I looked at Barbara straight in her face and I said, Barbara, you don't have the smallest clue what you are talking about. I got up and I left madder than oh man, I was mad. Now the anger I carry with me out that door is so far from anything you could possibly imagine. Now, did my remarks to Barbara do any good? I don't know and don't care. Okay, now it wasn't too long after that, Mickey calls me late one night and he tells me that Robert has fallen in his bathroom and has broken his leg. He tells me what hospital he has been taken to. So Jeanette and I leave immediately. We arrive at the emergency room. We tell the attending nurse who we are and who we want to see. She asks us to have a seat in the lobby while she tells our family we are there. And about 20 minutes later, Kenneth comes out and says to me, "Come on, Roy, I will take you to see your brother." Jeanette is left in the lobby by herself, sobbing. Now, my anger has just elevated again. Okay, now I go in and I see the x-rays of Robert and all the damage to his leg. It was broken in 2 places, and this is not good. So they move Robert up to his room. I go down and get Jeanette, and we both go up to his room, and I go in with Jeanette. When sees Jeanette, she goes into a fit of rage and orders Jeanette out of his room. "You're not allowed in here. Get out of this room right now, and don't you ever come back." Oh man, Jeanette leaves. Now Jeanette's really crying. And I wanted to go over there and punch every tooth in her mouth out. But all I did was just look down at Robert. I could see that his eyes had a slight haze over them. He had a hard, far-away look. I touched his face, and he never moved. I don't believe he had any idea where he was or who was in the room with him. Then I said to myself, "You and I are going to meet again in hell, and you are not going to like what you get from me." I turned around and left the room. Okay, so when I step outside the room, Jeanette is out there crying buckets of tears. And she begs me to go back in. Roy, please, you have to go back in and be with your brother. He needs you now." Well, I'm just 10 shades mad. And I turn to Jeanette and I take her by both her shoulders. And I'm looking her straight in the eyes and I said, "Hey, look, Jeanette has forced me to choose between my twin brother and you. You are my wife, Jeanette, and the mother of our daughters. I now choose you. Let's go." A few days later, Mickey calls me to tell me Robert has died. He tells me when and where the funeral services will be held for Robert. Thank you so much, Mickey. I appreciate everything you have done to help try to keep me informed on what's going on with Robert. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So now, Jeanette and I, we go to the funeral home. We are standing on the left side entrance. Jeanette is holding my left arm. Then they comes around the back corner of the home with Barbara walking on her right side. When that sees me, she starts running up to me, throwing her arms around my neck, crying. Never acknowledging Jeanette was even on the same planet. This set my anger and rage infuriated. I was so mad, all I could do was just stare at Barbara with all the hate I could muster. I realized Barbara was completely clueless, but at that moment I was so infuriated I didn't give a flying piece of crap if she was clueless or not. I guess when that realizes that all I was doing was just standing there with Jeanette still holding my left arm, she let go and went on into the chapel without saying a word. Now, did I feel any better? No. I was so infuriated I couldn't see straight. Okay, now we all go inside the funeral home. I sit on the left side in the aisle seat at the very back of the chapel. Jeanette sits on my left and her sister sits on Jeanette's left. After the services are over, I'm invited to pay my last respects. I decline. After everyone else has paid their respects, I go down to say my goodbyes to Robert. Okay, so now I'm standing there looking down at Robert, and I tell Robert how grateful I was that it was him that was my twin brother. I tell Robert how sorry I was for all the heartaches he had to endure. I placed my Marine Corps lapel button next to his left side, and I said, Robert, I hope lets this go with you. I gave him a salute. I said, Semper Fi, Robert, and I left the building. Okay, so now we're leaving, and when Jeanette sees that I'm not going to Robert's graveside, she asks, Roy, where are you going? Aren't you going to go to Robert's graveside service? Oh, man, then I lost it, man. I'm telling Jeanette, look, if I go there, I will end up... Is that what you want to happen now? No, Roy, that's not what I want to happen. Let's just go home and try to put all this behind us. Oh, man, Jeanette, that ain't never going to happen. I can't even believe you're even asking me to do that. I have told Jeanette our 3 daughters, Lydia, Charlotte, and Tiffany, and one outside close family friend to Robert, that I will meet in hell and make her life 1,000 times more miserable than all hell could possibly dream of. Now, all 5 have told me, Roy, you ain't going to hell. But the way I understand hell works, that is the only place that is destined for. And I am going to meet her there. And when I do, she will get a lesson in anger and vengeful hate that she never dreamed possible. And it will be for all eternity. I realize how daughters see their mothers as a sweet, caring, and loving mom, and I also realize how grandchildren will see their grandmother as a gentle, loving, and doting grandmother that will do anything and everything in their power for them. They could never believe this gentle, loving, and doting grandmother could possibly have an evil bone in her frail, gentle body. And that's as it should be, for crying out loud. I understand all of that. However, that belief from innocent children cannot erase the ugly truth so carefully hidden under a facade filled with rotten anger and a vengeful hatred that some mothers and grandmothers are infected with. It is unfortunate these 3 daughters and all the grandchildren had such an evil for a mother and grandmother. They had no voice in choosing their mother or their grandmother. And as Robert would say, it's just a luck of the draw. In closing, I am going to share some interesting dialogue and exchanges between Robert's extended family and me. Sometime in 2011, I believe it's 2011, Robert's grandson, Travis Bierman, contacted me through Facebook. He gave me his phone number and I called him late that night. He wanted to know more about his granddad. Well, okay, I'll answer any and all questions you have, Travis. His first question was, did Robert smoke marijuana? Not in his entire life, Travis, did Robert ever use drugs of any kind, and he certainly never smoked marijuana. We then go on to have a general conversation, and when he gets ready to hang up, he says, Uncle Roy, please don't tell my grandmother that I'm talking to you. Why, Travis? Well, because she will get mad at me. Oh, okay. Let's say, how old are you, Travis? 21? Oh, okay. Then we hang up. Before I started to post this footnote, I opened my Facebook page and Travis Bierman was no longer listed in my friends list. On the surface, it would appear to me that his grandmother's reign of fear cast a large shadow, large enough to keep a 21-year-old adult in the shadow of fear. Robert and I were born 22 minutes apart. Robert was the oldest. We grew up together on a Georgia dirt farm. We experienced the big city life together. We went to school together, and we played in a band together. We worked together with our dad in his janitor business. We worked together at a large print shop there in Houston. We both worked together at Pepsi Cola in Houston as well. We joined the Marine Corps together. We were stationed at Camp Pendleton together. We were discharged from the Corps together. We joined the CANG 148th Combat Squadron in California together. We both received the Airman of the Year award together. This was the first time in Air Force history 2 airmen in the same squadron and in the same year were awarded this accommodation. We went into business together. We moved across state together. We were never separated until Robert married his 4th wife in 1997, and he passed away 10 October 1997. The policy I held at that time, cash value was $64,800 and some change. It paid me $900 a month until the last payout in 2003. At that time, in 2003, I started drawing my Social Security around $1,200 a month. 2 years later, Jeanette began drawing her Social Security around $1,100 a month. Now that all the dust has settled, what did happen to Color Bar? Well, I can tell you this. My twin brother Robert, that I knew and grew up with all my life, would never have done anything to bring harm to me or Color Bar. Color Bar fell victim to alcoholism that was injected with a fatal dose of jealousy and hatred. I don't care to get into all the could-haves, should-haves, and would-haves. Hindsight is only useful if learned from when making a fresh start. That is not in the cards I hold today. I have an appointment in hell, and I intend to keep it. It was not the retirement Robert and I had planned and worked so hard for, and all because of alcoholism and a jealous hatred. Jeanette and I were married for 54 years, and our sunset years were wonderful during the short time that she had left with me. She passed away from pancreatic cancer on 8 May 2013. I still have everything Jeanette had the day that she said goodbye. Okay, a couple of footnotes here. There came a time when Color Bar sponsored a couple of bowling teams. And one night, Robert, Buddy Fredericks, and me, we were at the Anaheim bowling alley practicing, when for some reason Buddy challenged everyone to quit smoking. Well, Robert accepted the challenge. He reached in his left shirt pocket, he pulled out his pack of cigarettes, laid them on the score table, picked up his Coors beer, and never smoked another cigarette after that. The following Friday night, when we showed up to bowl, Buddy had to give Robert $100 worth of free haircut. To this day, I still have my bowling league shirt. Can you believe it? Okay, another footnote. The last conversation I had with Robert concerning his use of beer and the effect it had on him, Robert became a bit angry and he told me to stay out of his personal life. As he was leaving the room, he stopped at the door, turned around, looking straight at me, and he said, "I tell you what, Roy, I will stop drinking beer right this minute if you will stop smoking right now." Oh, man. I looked at Robert and I said, "Robert, I don't think I can stop smoking now." And with that, that was the last time me and him ever talked about his beer drinking habits. Well, that's all I have for part 4. But I want to leave you with this thought. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. And the choices you make this day will determine if this day will become a good memory.